Hello, everyone. I'm Saleha, and this is Chai Chat and Community. Tonight, I am chatting with the gorgeous Mariam Issa, an author and a community advocate. Hello, Mariam, and thank you for coming to the show.
Hello, Saleha. Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel truly privileged to be on this platform.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. Mariam, you're very well known as a community leader. And can you please tell us about your initial journey when you first came to Australia? It must have been a really tough one because not too many people came at that time.
Yeah. So I introduce myself as a storyteller. I come from a very oral culture that is really big in stories. And storytelling, I think, is the power with which we can really own our power, because the story in the power of story is is everything. And before I came to Australia, it is 21 years now. That was a long time ago. I was pregnant with my fifth child and last child. I came with 4 other children, who the oldest was 10 years old and the youngest was 5 and 6 months pregnant. So you must understand it was a really big journey.
Yes.
And prior to that, actually, I was always a housewife. I've never worked outside of the house. I had children. I was raising them. I was a mother. So when I came to, and I had never ever had a Western interaction either. So coming to the West was like a quantum leap for me. Just a place where, I had left all my family behind. But having also said that, I do feel that I am one of the very luckiest refugees, because we came through the family reunion. And so my husband's family was here before us. And hence why I ended up in Brighton, in an affluent suburb in Melbourne. So my brother-in-law was living at the time in a near suburb called Bentley. So that's how we were transitioned. So we were very lucky. We were processed offshore. And so when we came in, we were just transitioned very easily. And at the time, it was 1998. Things were not as hard as it is today. So it's very difficult in Australia if, you're listening to this outside of Australia too. We have a lot of asylum seekers. We have a lot of refugees, people who are in detention to this day. So I do feel that, our beginning wasn't as hard as that. But having said that, I was also displaced 8 years before coming to Australia. So we did have our share bit of hardship, of adversity. And I have seen what war can do, to a whole system, a system that lived and was breathing and was, we were living as a communal, and all of a sudden it just collapsed. And it was the worst collapse because it was a civil war. And civil war means that the neighbor that you had trusted is now against you. So it is the worst of the human atrocity. So I had witnessed that, and coming here, being settled, being in a very affluent and very white suburb, I then encountered racism. I encountered, things that were against our culture. And I do believe that culture is a currency. And when your currency is deflated, you can't buy anything with it. So having come to this, and also when you're not trading with your currency, the currency of the people that you live with, if they give you that, you don't know how to trade with it either. So you make a lot of mistakes. And as we were making a lot of mistakes, a lot of assumptions were made against us. So there's these labels that people put on you when you do not own your story.
Yes.
So in that space, I felt a victim in the first phase of being in Australia. I think it has been maybe 5 or 6 years, was a phase of victimhood, feeling utter powerlessness, of being a housewife, coming around affluent people, connecting with women who are all, independent and working, because, you know, the women that I was interacting with were either my doctors, or they were the teachers of my children, or they were the community, you know, interactive that I was working with. And so it just, I was bewildered in this space. And so that was the start of my journey.
Yes, I'm guessing a lot of women listening to you and who have just arrived or have been here for a few years, they will relate to their story. And I hope they draw courage from you. Yes.
Yeah, so so my story is not unique. It's not unique to me. It's a story of many women, and I know that the world is in turmoil. The world has been in turmoil for so many, you know, decades. And as I journeyed, you know, in this journey, as I was going through these phases, which my next phase was anger, and then the third phase became my phase of empowerment. So as I lived through these phases, I was observing, I was getting to know myself, but I was also walking alongside women. And what I realized is that the journey, you know, the world is lopsided because women have let go of their power. We have been told that we don't have power. We believed in the stories or the labels that we've been given through, it might be patriarchy, it might be through religion, it might be through a lot of narrative that we have harbored along the way, that we have inherited from our grandmothers and mothers. And so it's been a relay that has been passed on to us in generations. And so when I came here, it was up to me to then really verify for myself the story that is true. What story do I want? Because we are always living with our stories. The stories of our ancestry is part of us, you know. We can't let go of, you know, our origin. And most often we do cling to that origin. But the one thing, the mistake we do is that we don't question if this origin was right. So for me, having gone through war, having gone through, you know, that race, just finding my feet on this new self that is emerging every 10 years, you know, I've been going through a phase, and I'm feeling, who is this, you know, I'm defining myself in every phase. So I had to redefine myself. I had to find my story. And I feel today that life has been a journey for me. Actually, a safari, I call it. Because safari in the Swahili word, I live in Africa, is a journey. And yeah, so it has been a safari, an extension of my lived experiences, a plateau that engages and excites me to shape, mold, and design my stories. But it's also been a platform that compels me to ask brave and courageous questions. And when I ask myself these questions, and the deeper I go in my inquiry, my experiences not only change, but transform. And that's what happens for everyone. And courage comes from asking powerful questions. Because when you ask these questions, even if you ask it within yourself, you know, the universe opens up for you and answers come to you. And life, we live life in symbolism, you know, and you ask a question, the next morning you might meet someone who has the perfect answer for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when I was struggling through this journey, I asked myself, why am I here? Because I didn't know what was the relevance. And I do know that no one ever is anywhere randomly. We are called to the places that we inhabit. Nothing is random. And as women of faith, we know that through our religions, we know that through, you know, even science. Even if you're not, you know, someone of faith, you do know that nothing is random. This universe is not random. Everything has a built-in meaning. And so you just feel for that and you connect with that, you know, those questions and ask without fear. So I think in the beginning it is hard, but what helped me is curiosity. You know, I've always been a curious person. Yes. And so I became very curious about the Western woman. You know, I've walked alongside African women. I've worked alongside Arab women. I've walked alongside, you know, so many different diverse women. And in this platform that I came to, that's the Western woman was all I saw. So I became very intrigued and I wanted to know her. I actually even went and worked in her home as a cleaner, just so I could see her in her natural habitat. How did she parent? How did she reach the successes that she has? And to me, you know, in the beginning, because all you see is the glamour in the West, you see the glamour and the glory and the beauty. So that was very intriguing to me. I was like, how could one country be in chaos and poverty and all that, you know, struggle with economy and everything, and another country could be this affluent? So those were the questions. Those were like, I was looking at the contrasting experiences that I have, the experience I'm having now in the West, and then the experience that I have come from. And I was looking at it, you know, and making sense of it. And so as I did that, other unapparent truths became clear to me. So as I went into the Western homes, I saw that I cleaned homes that not many people lived in. There were these big, beautiful homes, but not many people lived in it. And then I worked in aged care centers and I saw the wisdom of the community away from the community. And then I saw young people roaming in shopping malls because there was no one home that they could go to. And then I saw also the distraction in the West. I saw young mental health. I saw young people like 12-year-old or 13, committing suicide. And so I felt that even amidst the glamour and the glory, there was a less apparent truth. Yes. You know, and that sometimes, yes, we can cover our stories with material and make it really look glamorous, but underneath there are other things that are happening. And so I realized that I was here actually to remember myself as an individual, because I've never had that opportunity to live my life as an individual. I always lived in a communal culture. And in communal culture, there's a dependency. You only know yourself through the community. So I also come from a very big family. And so that was my reality in a communal culture. And then I came to the West, which is a very independent culture. It's all about me and mind. And, I'm thriving and I'm looking for more, and it's about material, and it's just the individual. And so I realized that the individual culture is a good one, but it doesn't work on its own. You can thrive as a one person, but if you're not thriving with your community, then it doesn't work on its own. And in the communal culture, it's all good and well to be dependent on others, but if you don't know yourself, it's not good either. So I became like, once I understood about me, I started to live from that space, and then added my communal space as well, and then it became interconnected. And I think that's the place where we all self-actualize. Yes. And that demands courage and a stretch of the imagination.
Lots of both. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the National Others Week, or now as it is called, which encourages people to help each other and pay it forward. And you have done just that. So how do you use your voice in bridging the gap between immigrants and the community for integration? I know about your community garden that you opened in your backyard, but that's an amazing story. Yes.
Yeah. So I think for what happened in this journey is that, and discovering all this about yourself, you develop a sense of compassion. And I think compassion comes with, because as you understand yourself, as you become an individual, I married the heart and the mind. because the mind and the heart, when they work together, the physical activity or the body becomes, you embody something that is great. And so you find a union between your whole self. And once you find that holistic self, then you start to understand that there's, life becomes like you're the creator, not now by default, but by design.
Yes.
And all that depends on this, your stories and how you're telling your story. So you understand that when you're in the weak position and you're telling your story from a weak place, then you kind of, it weakens you. You become like a victim. And the minute you change your words, you can step into, a design. You can say, oh, you know what? I do feel this way, but I don't have to. I can change the way I feel. And so you start to play with your feelings. You start to understand, why am I angry when you're angry? Why am I, feeling victimhood when I'm feeling this way? So you start to really play with your feelings. And once I did that, I understood, and I think having come from that oral culture, what happens is cultures of storytelling, they seed love, they seed stories, and they know that one day it will germinate. And so I remember that I used to hear my mother say, if you can host someone in your heart, you can host them in your home. And what she actually meant by that saying, that I understood later on in my life, maybe 25 or 30 years later, is that people will make mistakes and you will face a lot of hardships. But forgiveness is the key. Forgive people and let go. People do change. And so the problems that I had, and what I faced in Brighton, I had to let go. I had to forgive, because I also received a lot. I received a lot of kindness. I received a lot of learning. And actually what I remember most is the kindness that I received from total strangers sometimes. And so that's the impact and the feeling that, I was called to this place and I was here to remember myself, but to also remind others what it means to be communal. And I lived in Kenya for a long time. Although I was born in Somalia, I lived in Kenya. I lived among the natives who owned small plots of land and cultivated their land. And then so I saw an opportunity in my backyard, that I had this big land that I wasn't using, and I could use it for a garden. I didn't even know that community gardens existed then, because this concept for me was a natural concept from where I came from. Naturally, the community were together. We had land, we cultivated it. At the harvest times, people would bring, some of the harvest, they would share. So that was a very natural thing for me. But when I came here and I did that, people were talking about community gardens, and it was something that is the in thing. I didn't realize at the time. So that's how I opened my backyard, to invite people in and to host them in my home so that we could connect with each other. But also I invited them to really create this community garden together. And so it's not something that I did alone, it's something that I did with the community. And I think at that time it was at the cusp of 2012. And there was a bit of a transition going on energetically, and people were really open to that. And, a lot of people came in. We have almost like 40 fruit trees in our garden now.
Wow.
Yeah, we plant a lot of veggies. And every fruit tree was adopted and planted by a community member. And it was given, we planted it with an intention. So every tree has an intention. We have a tree of trust. We have a tree of abundance. We have a tree of love, a tree of family. Everybody came with an intent and said, my intention for my tree is this.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So I know you talked about this. Times have changed since you first arrived in Melbourne and you lived in a predominantly, Caucasian suburb.
Mm-hmm.
How do people, I think, are more aware and accepting? How do you draw parallels, and how do you motivate people?
I think, mostly people will connect, whatever you harbor in your heart, whatever you are feeling, through this journey that I have told you about, my phases of victimhood or of anger. What I realized is that in every phase, when I was a victim, guess what? Everybody around me was a victim. I interacted with a lot of people who were feeling victimized by life.
Yeah.
And then when I moved and transitioned to anger, guess what? I was among angry people. People who felt that other people had wronged them, and that, although anger is so much better than victimhood, because in anger you can blame other people for your problems. And so I felt that, and I saw that, and I was like, actually, people are like a mirror for me. Whatever I'm feeling is what I see in them. And in my empowerment phase, I started interacting with people who are looking for solutions,
Yeah.
who are creating their world, who are saying, I want to be the change that I want to see in this world. And so now, whenever I go out, or whenever it's something that I have really tangibly taken on board. And so the days that I come and I see someone who's really angry and is lashing back at me, I have to really look inside and say, what am I angry about today? And, even though we don't feel sometimes that we are the cause, we are the cause, or we are the people who are, doing that, then, but it does happen that way. And there is 4 profound universal laws that I would love to share today here. And one, they're really incredible. The minute I learned those 4 laws, it became everything that I could, that I designed my life with. So the first law is the law of existence. And it says your worthiness comes from purely because you exist. It's not from a lineage that you come from. It's not from a profession. It's not from any label. It's not from your creed. It's not from, your gender. You're worthy simply because you exist. The second one is you're part of the whole. Your existence is part of it all. You've come from the source, and you're back to it. You're whole, you're part of the whole. The third one says, whatever you put in is whatever you get out. And as a gardener, I attest to that. Whatever seed that you plant is the seed that you will harvest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The fourth one is live in the presence. There is no, the past and the future are all concepts.
Yes. We can't control them. Yes.
Yes. So, but when you live in the present moment, you work with memory, which is your past, and you work with imagination, which is your future.
Yes.
And so you can bring that, and then this is the place that you become a creator in your present moment. And so if you can use those 4, universal laws, and they do work, then you become the creator of your life. And when whenever you have grief, and we are human, we go through grief, you can catalyze that grief for grace. You can change it for grace. And because that grief is what makes you grow. Without grief, without these hardships, I would never today be the woman I am. And so I think as women, what I urge and what I invite for you, especially in today, because the world has changed after COVID. We have a new world emerging. And this world, I believe, is a hub. And because women are the leaders who will be creating this world. And you have to ask yourself, how am I going to contribute to this new world? Am I going to keep victimizing myself? Am I going to contribute anger? Or am I going to contribute compassion?
Those are really profound. Wow.
Mm.
Tell us about your book, A Resilient Life. What prompted you to write that?
So both Raw, Resilient Aspiring Women, which is the Raw Garden, and Resilient Life came together on 2012 was a big year for me. So I launched the book and I launched the community garden, both in 2012, December of 2012. And so I wrote the book for 3 years in a writing class. And the seed was actually planted by a woman that at the time I was working as a cleaner. And this woman, I gave her an article and I said, look, I live I live in Bayside. I want my story to be known among the community. And so I wrote an article that I wanted to publish in the Leader. And I showed her and she said, wow, Mariam, this is beyond an article. This could be a book. Have you ever thought of writing your book? And so she just planted that seed. And the minute I had that, I really wanted to share my story. I wanted to be part of this community, but I also wanted to use this platform that I was given to bring the stories of the women who never would have their voices heard. And so I went to a writing class and I did 3 years, wrote 3 years, and the book actually became a really good, a lot of people who read it, send me, I've had immense, I feel immensely gratitude,
Yes.
because a lot of people share their thoughts with me and they just loved the book. But it's all about my journey. It's about, and my son designed it. And he said, Mom, when you first came, he designed it as a butterfly. And one of the wings of the butterfly.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he said, this wing is when you came, and this, wing is you're now, complete. So it's such a humbling experience for my son, who became a graphic designer, and the opportunities. So the book actually signifies for me the opportunities that I received in this country, and I am immensely grateful every day for that. And I know that it's just such an we do go through hardships. We do go through a learning curve. We connect with community because people don't know about our cultures. But the more you interact, the more you go into the communities, the more I used food. And I feel like food is a great catalyst for social change. And I owned a business called CookwithMariam. And I was always ambitious in challenging people to get to know my culture. And pushing in, and people surprised me. They were very accepting. In the beginning, of course, there will be resistance, but there was acceptance afterwards. Today, honestly, I'm celebrated in Brighton. I feel like I am a community member in the heart of Brighton, and I feel very, very. I feel that I have been really received well now, So, I think it's just doing the work.
I mean, other than, the great work that you do, you think people are more accepting now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, the community garden is now a flourishing garden. We have a pavilion that we built. We've almost community members have spent a lot of, resources. There's a lot of volunteering happening. And whoever I ask, a lot of doors have opened for me. And I believe, this community garden actually taught me family beyond blood relations. Because when you really connect with the earth and you connect with people, the earth, what it does is it gives so much, to you, but you have to do the work.
Absolutely.
And people are the same. You connect with them, you keep challenging them, you keep talking, you keep going in, and they will embrace you at last. So I think it's, it is a two-way street. Yes. Yes. This country, yeah. And I feel like today I'm one of the, I feel like a host in Australia. Like I have come and I've been hosted well. And so now people who come, I am an active, I'm an advocate for refugees, for asylum seekers, for, migrant communities, for women of color. We really need our voices to be heard.
Yes.
But we have to stand up ourselves as well, and not see, the cocoon, but see the butterfly that is emerging. So we really have to step up our game. And I support young women. I push them. And I challenge women. I've become a coach now. And what coaches do is they challenge you, and you have to, we have to get out of our comfort zone. Yes, we've had our share of hardships, but we can let it go. We can let all that resistance go and then create the life that we really want.
Wow. So tell us about your Resilient in Aspiring Women, and also the Space to Be projects with the community and refugee groups.
So since I came, I really truly feel privileged, because I feel like I haven't stopped. I really relate to the saying, the world is your oyster.
Absolutely.
The world became my oyster. I just literally found the passion. I think the fuel for life is passion. And once you connect with your passion, you can do anything. So, and I'm a storyteller, so I have a lot of speaking opportunities. I'm invited to many platforms that I share my story. And so I do it through the, Raw Garden is one of the work that I do. And Raw Garden actually is a not-for-profit organization. We don't pay anyone. We only work, through volunteering. And I have been doing that project for almost 8 years now. And it's all volunteer, based. And then I worked with another woman who was starting something called Space to Be. And it's a creative space for designers and artists and for migrants and refugees. And then it was about connecting the mainstream artists and designers to the refugees and asylum seekers. And so we created that platform, and it became an incredible space. It's called actually Space to Be. So Space to Be is a shop in St. Kilda, and it works with migrants and refugees, but with mainstream artists as well. Because a lot of talented and incredible people, people who come as migrants and refugees doesn't mean that just because you came to a new country that you didn't come with a talent. A lot of people come with incredible talents.
Yes, absolutely.
We wanted to give them an outlet to express and to create platforms. So I felt that because when I came, I didn't have those opportunities, I wanted to create opportunity for the people before me. And so that's the power. I think it's just paving the way and pioneering our way and showing the host country that, yeah, we do come with incredible talents and we can share this. So it's all about, that power of sharing and opening up our minds, stretching our imagination.
So before I let you go tonight, Mariam, what would you tell women who are part of this group, who have all the talent but don't have the confidence to go out and make themselves heard and seen, and and whatever they can do. I mean, nothing is too small, nothing is too big.
Nothing is too small, nothing is too big. Well said, Saliha. I think for women, what I want to, to say is that forget about these rah-rah stories about empowering women. The power, you already have your power. You're
Yes.
already empowered, So don't look for empowerment. You already have it. All you have to do is just get out of your way and do the work. And you can start slow. Where am I at? Everyone is at a different pace in life. There are women who are mothers, who are raising their children. If that is what, do that to the best of your ability. Find joy in what you do. I'm a gardener. And every day I see a bee, the beauty and the analogy, nature shows us everything. So I see a bee waking up every day and looking for a nectar,
Yes.
look for the flower, and the bee will go anywhere to find that beautiful flower. And what it does, it doesn't even disturb the flower. It just goes straight into the nectar. The lifespan of a bee is only 3 months. And the bee doesn't care whether it lives for 3 months or not. Its innate is to find that beautiful nectar. And while it does that, it pollinates the crops, but it also gives us honey.
Yes.
And guess what? Those are just byproduct for the bee. The bee's intent is just that nectar. It's not there to produce honey or to pollinate our crop. That's just a byproduct. So as existence, people who are existing, and we just do what you love. Whatever you do, bring that love. And then once you put love into your work, whatever it is, it will flourish. And guess what will happen? Other people will benefit from it. And you will never feel that you're working. I love my job, but it's not a job to me. I would not have been able to do the raw garden if it hadn't been my passion and something that I love. Because it's been 8 years. How could I do 8 years of work for no pay to just welcome people into my garden? And at times, in the beginning, it was hard. The first 2 years, just to create that trust for people to be able to trust you to come into your home. And for you also to get out of your way to trust them, to bring them in your home. Because we have events in the garden. Sometimes we have 30 people. Sometimes we have, the most we had was 60 in my backyard. And so we create events like that. And I do that every time, and I welcome people, and it's a lot of hard work.
Yes.
But I don't see it that way, So my advice, which I don't like advice,
suggestion.
The reminder, what I want to remind you is that innately you're capable. You have everything you need. So you don't need help. If you need support, you can ask for it. And be okay with vulnerability. Sometimes we make mistakes. Lack of confidence comes from wanting to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. We're all learning. We're all, and especially if you're doing something for the first time, it's not that easy. But the more you do it again and again, you will find the confidence.
And you get better at it.
Yeah, the thing with that is you will always be climbing. You will always be going to new heights that needs new confidence. So it's just building, just getting out of your way and doing it one day at a time.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mariam. It's been fascinating chatting with you. And thank you for coming to the show. Really appreciate this.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Stay safe. Stay well. Bye.
Bye.